Good morning, it's Friday, July 25th, 2025. I'm senior atmospheric scientist Andrew Pritchard with Nutrien Ag Solutions, taking a look at your Canadian Prairie weather story today. Stormy pattern rolls on. We're looking at the 7-day precipitation accumulation there on the right side. We've seen some areas picking up an inch or more of rain over the last 7 days, and over the next 10 to 14, those off and on again storm chances roll on in to what I said here, the first 10 days of August. Temperatures, they go down a bit, they go right back up as we head into next week. Still no sign of any prolonged excessive heat on the horizon, but we will trend a bit warmer after a cooler weekend across most corners of the prairie. A little bigger, your 7-day precipitation totals, again, nearly 3 inches, over 2 inches in the Calgary area, surrounding areas there. You can find an inch as you make your way into parts of southwestern Saskatchewan. Same thing all the way into far southwestern Manitoba. As you head a little further north, precipitation gets a little more hit or miss, but a lot of folks across the prairie getting a nice drink along and south of Highway 16 over the last 7 days. And really, as I jump back here, you can see it's been a stormy corridor from the prairies through the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and down into the Corn Belt of the United States as these storm clusters just continue to roll over the ridge parked across the western United States. We can kind of see that evolution here. We've got a kind of a couple components to the pattern across North America this morning. We've got a front stalled here across the Midwestern U.S., the Corn Belt here, back where I live. I'm actually recording from a hotel in Sioux Falls, South Dakota today, so I'm kind of splitting the difference between you all. Fair weather here across the Dakotas, and then we have another disturbance that's coming into the prairies right now. You can kind of see the counterclockwise swirl there, that area of low pressure. That's going to move across the prairie, bringing scattered showers and storms today into tomorrow, kind of combining with the disturbance coming out of the Dakotas. So a couple more days of storm chances. High pressure on the backside as we roll into early next week, but we'll get right back into storm chances in the next 5 to 6 days. Your radar here, we'll go ahead and move ahead. I sometimes get carried away talking about the whole pattern with the satellite animation, but you can really pick out a lot there when you look at that. Again, radar this morning, Friday, July 25th, heaviest across northern portions of the prairie on the Alberta-Saskatchewan border. As we kind of take a look at temperatures here, generally in the middle teens, pretty uniform for those temperatures across the prairie right now. Cooler as you head all the way over toward the Peace River area there, you can find some single digits, but a lot of Alberta and Saskatchewan, somewhere between 13 to 17 degrees here today, probably headed for highs very close to the lower 20s in a lot of areas. We'll talk about those temperatures at the end. What I want to talk about first is the timing of your storm chances over the next 2 to 3 or I should say the next 2 weeks. We're not going to get into the 3-week time frame. We certainly would have very low confidence in that range. But as we look at the forecast today, we're talking about isolated to widely scattered thunderstorms. A few of these could be severe across portions of eastern Saskatchewan, getting into Manitoba. A couple hailstorms. Can't rule out an isolated tornado as we head into the late evening and early overnight hours as well. Thunderstorm activity fades overnight, and then we'll head into a pretty quiet start to the weekend. Can't rule out some showers across Alberta on Saturday as we head into Sunday. Maybe watch again for some widely scattered thunderstorm activity, west to east across the entirety of the prairie. Not a soaker, but, certainly Sunday afternoon could wind up with a thunderstorm somewhere in your vicinity. Can't rule out, once again, a couple of strong storms across generally eastern Saskatchewan into southern Manitoba. Is really where the severe weather is likely to be focused with this, passing front and upper level low over the next 48 hours. We'll head into a quieter stretch late weekend into the early part of next week. So we take a look at those precipitation totals over the next 4 days. Variable. A lot of people going to be on the lighter side, to be honest with you, as we head through the weekend here. This is not going to be a widespread rain event. And if I kind of flip between, this is the NAM model, here's the European model, you can see kind of some different ideas, but the same kind of general idea. I say, different placement with some of the the NAM's got a thunderstorm here closer to Highway 16 with that corridor of heavier rain. And then you look down here at the European and it says maybe it's a little bit further south near the Highway 1 corridor. The point is, a lot of folks kind of on the drier side through the weekend, but there will definitely be some corridors of locally heavy rainfall here getting into the 20 to 30 millimeter range where we get some of those heavier thunderstorms that could also produce some hail. Again, can't rule out an isolated tornado as we head through the weekend as well. Big difference if I put the next 2 weeks in total on there. This is the entire run of the European operational model. You start to see a lot of people getting into that red shading where we're talking about 40 to 50 millimeters or more, but still some pockets that get missed. And that just is how it is this time of year when we're talking about, again, a very favorable pattern that keeps thunderstorms in the forecast here But, not everyone's going to get that. It's just the nature of these storms. So we can take a look at kind of a more, averaged or ensembled approach here. And as I kind of just take a macro look at North America, 15-day precipitation anomaly, you see the big swath of green from Alberta down into the Corn Belt of the United States. Again, a very favorable pattern. We just kind of continue to adjust week to week. Who's the hot spot? Who sees the most rain? Central and southern Alberta into southwestern Saskatchewan, you're going to be probably the winners over the next 2 weeks overall. Once again, it's been pretty stormy in those areas, kind of trailing off as you head further to the north. Couple ways to look at this in different manners. Here's your probability of picking up half an inch or 12.5 millimeters of rain or more over the next 2 weeks, and you see a lot of red shading there. We're talking about a better than 90% chance across almost the entirety of the prairie. If I take it a step further, this is the probability of picking up 1 inch or more over the next 2 weeks, so about 25 millimeters to 30 millimeters. Again, you get into that orange shading, we're talking 60 to 80% across much of central and southern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan, southern Manitoba. You can find some pockets where we may get missed, far southern Alberta. You're often kind of left out. You just a more arid location down there. But far southern Alberta, getting into central parts of Saskatchewan and, northern portions of what would be the prairie, terrain there across southern Manitoba. So really central southern, excluding far southern Alberta into southwestern Saskatchewan and then far southern portions of Manitoba, I think going to be the more routine, stormy and heavier rainfall experiencing locations, but more of a zoom look, same thing, probability of 1 inch or more over the next 2 weeks. And you get those greener shadings where that probability drops below 50%. Very, very far southern Alberta, central Saskatchewan, central portions of Manitoba, probably the drier spot. Now, as we take a look at the jet stream here, what's going on? We've got, strong jet stream flow as we start off. Here's the forecast right now, this fast flow overhead. That's what's kept it very stormy over the last 7 days. We do lose that a bit as we head into kind of the early to mid part of next week. We get some ridging here, an upper level low that's kind of stuck over here over the Gulf of Alaska, but this does not shut the pattern down. We're going to kind of pause it a little bit, a little drier weather for maybe 3 to 4 days before flow comes right on back into the prairie. Another favorable look here for storm clusters riding over the top of the ridge, which is focused here over the southwestern United States. If you were to take a year like 2021, this little circle you see in the flow, that high pressure cell, was located way up here. So this is simply a favorable background state for shower and thunderstorm activity to roll over the top of that ridge and through the Canadian prairie. Take it all the way to the end here, August 9th, and you see where is the flow across North America. It's right here running along the U.S.-Canadian border. That should kick off storms here, off the Front Range and then roll them all the way across the prairie down into the Dakotas, in the Corn Belt. So from me down here right now I'm in South Dakota, but from me down to my home, back to your guys, back 40, we're talking about a favorable pattern here for late summertime thunderstorm activity. So I just kind of roll this in. This is a 24-hour sliding window of rainfall here over the next 2 weeks. So you can kind of pick out these thunderstorm clusters. You can pick out your drier period. And then here we go right into the first week of August, another storm system. So I'll pause this. I'll bring it on back. Here's your weekend thunderstorm chances. You see those little corridors of heavier rainfall where some of these thunderstorms, pop up anywhere from the, the prairies down into the northern plains. You see a big thunderstorm cluster here coming out of North Dakota, down across Minnesota, parts of South Dakota. You can see the scattered, hit or miss nature to it all across the prairies. Here's your drier lull as we head into the first part of the next week. But then as we get into, the first couple of days of August, maybe a bit drier, but I think it's kind of August 2nd into the, August 3rd, 4th, and 5th is when we get this next upper level low to make its way into the prairie, bring these thunderstorm chances right on back into the region. Temperatures, I mentioned, we got some change going on, a little warmer today in some areas, but we'll see some cooler air filtering in on the backside of this storm system that brings the next couple of days worth of storm chances. We'll get some cooler air to settle in, but then warmth builds back in with that ridging as we head into the first few days of August. So it looks something like this. Calgary, those highs in the middle teens as we head through the weekend. 16 on Saturday, 17 on Sunday, but you're back up to 24 by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday of next week. As I mentioned, turning warmer, but we're lacking those big periods of, a week to 2 weeks straight of days with temperatures 30 to 35 degrees. And that is just great news. As long as we keep that area of high pressure way down across the southwestern United States, we're not going to see that kind of heat expanding, unfettered across the prairie. So favorable pattern. If you like these more moderate temperatures and routine chances for showers and storms, keeping the heat stress and the drought stress to a minimum across the prairie, I think we've got a pretty good situation going on in most areas. Yell at me in the comments if you're a problem area, and I'll dive into that certainly for you. Edmonton, here's a look at your temps. Very similar to Calgary. It's going to be similar across the board. 31 for the high today in Regina, down to 21 on Monday, back to the middle 20s for much of mid to late next week into the weekend. Saskatoon, similar as well. Here you go, Winnipeg. Further east, everything's a little more delayed as it moves west to east across the prairie. So pretty, toasty. Today, 30, 32 tomorrow. You'll cool down to the lower 20s as we head into Tuesday. Much less humid across the region for those couple of days there, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as well. Highs back into the middle 20s, getting up to the upper 20s at times as we head through later next week into the first few days of August.